So, welcome everybody. So excited to have you for today's wellness exchange. My name is Mika. Leah. For those of you that don't know me, I am the CEO and founder of Goomi Group. And at this month is May, obviously, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we are here to focus on leadership qualities that not only drive success, but also promote mental well-being in the workplace. So that is why you're all here. And today I am joined by one of my coaches, one of my leadership, can I say badass? Badasses, highly respected executive leadership coach specializing in holistic leadership and development transformation. And this last week we had a Goomi retreat and we had the pleasure and just pleasure of inviting April to join us and to talk about her innovative approach. So today we're going to talk about her innovative approach and proprietary wholeness assessment that has impacted thousands of leaders globally and executives also from top US companies, just like Goomi Group. So leadership skills, as you all know, and mental well-being are deeply interconnected. And today, April and I are going to explore the 5 essential qualities that every healthy leader must cultivate. So I'm going to let April talk about that. But welcome, April. So excited to have you. This is amazing. So, April, before we dive into all of those qualities that all of us leaders need to have, I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey and what led you to focus on holistic leadership development.
It's really great to be here, not just with you, Mika, because you're such a phenomenal leader. I love what you're building at Goomi. But for all of the folks that are here, this conversation, this topic feels so important to me. And it's important to me because it really is born out of my own journey and my story. I've been a leader my whole life. I was called bossy as a little kid. And when I was in my mid-20s, I was on a fast and furious trajectory for leadership growth and was leading at a really high level already and was kind of taking the world by storm. And as that was happening, I was very quickly also about to blow out my life. I was, again, my mid-20s. The world was my oyster, but I was running fast and furious, not only towards burnout, but I think really destroying my life. And I had a conversation with my mentor. And after 2 panic attacks that I had in a very short period of time, I'm not someone who is prone to anxiety or has any significant mental health issues in that way. But those 2 panic attacks woke me up and I was like, something is not working. And she said, April, you have a Popeye arm. And I was like, what is that? She's like, Popeye, he's got this really giant, strong bicep on this one arm. And then this other arm is totally emaciated. She's like, your Popeye arm is goals, getting stuff done, achieving all of the things, conquering the world. You can do more by 9 a.m. than most people can do in a whole day. And she's like, that arm is so strong. This other arm, though, is completely emaciated, and it is the arm of rest and recovery and renewal. And unless you figure out how to do both in a way that is balanced and a little bit more equitable, you're not going to do well in this leadership world. And I'm grateful that that happened in my mid-20s because it's changed the entire trajectory of my life over the last 20 years. And it has become the thing that I do now in my work is to really help leaders to lead holistically, not just in the goals and the metrics and the achieving all of the things, but in a way that is sustainable for the success in both life and leadership.
I know you've been a great coach to me in my life and in my leadership. And I know one of the things that you always ask me is, we'll talk about the goals and things like that. But one of the first questions you ask me is, how are you doing? And, what are you doing for yourself? Or what did you do for yourself? So obviously there's this, huge connection between the healthy leadership and the mental well-being in organizations,
Yeah.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have healthy leaders, that trickles down. And since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, how do you, April, see that connection between the healthy leadership and mental well-being in organizations?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say we've already mentioned between the two of us the word leadership 15 times. That's what we're here to talk about. So when I talk about leadership, I am talking specifically about how can you expand your influence and your impact in whatever you're doing, wherever you are. So that is home, that's your community, that is the workplace, anywhere that anyone is looking to you or following you or asking you for a plan or advice or where to go, like that's leadership. And so it is personal and professional. So I want to set that kind of as a precursor, like just a foundation for the conversation. Um, Beyond that, I would say it is not a nice thing to have, like mental well-being and like integrating that into your leadership. It's a necessity. The most important person you will ever lead is yourself. You're also the most difficult person that you will ever lead. Like it or not, like, and nobody else is responsible to lead you other than you. You can't pass the buck on your boss or your stakeholders or your board. It is your responsibility and privilege to lead yourself. And I think when you are leading yourself well, there is an intrinsic knowledge that you know when you're not doing well, when something is off, when you're not on your A game, when you are feeling like off kilter. And so I just noticed over the last, 10, 15 years, that healthy leaders are creating healthy cultures. And so when a culture is not healthy, you got to look at the leader and be like, what is going on here in the system that is causing the thing to not be healthy? And so when leaders are healthy, they're making it safer for others to show up as their whole self, as whole humans, not just workers. It's like the stupid analogy that is a cliche for a reason, like putting on the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? So if you are not doing well, put the oxygen mask on first, even when you are doing well. Like it is just the ongoing task and privilege and responsibility of the leader to first take care of themselves and lead themselves to their whole selves, so that they are able to do that with other people.
And I think we could say that, when I give my heart talks, for those of you that know my heart story, for those of you that don't, you can check it out or Google it. But I always say that I think that's true for everybody, that we all need to, whether you're a leader, a manager, an employee, a mom,
Yeah.
a dad, like all of us need to put those oxygen masks on ourselves first. And I always like to say, because if we don't, then we're not able to take care of the others, right?
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
so many people here are in HR and they're the caretakers, right? They're the
Mm-hmm.
ones taking care of the company. They're the ones taking care of the employees. They're the ones seeing the burnout, the
Yep.
quiet quitting,
Yep.
all of that, the turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And they're experiencing it firsthand. And so I think it's really important, that oxygen mask. I love that
Mm-hmm.
analogy, April. So thank you for sharing that. So let's dive
Mm-hmm.
into like the nitty gritty because I want to get
Yeah.
through this and like keeping an eye on the time. So I know that you've identified a total of 5 qualities in leadership. Let's talk about like the two that are, and you can talk a little bit. Why don't you talk a little bit about the 5? And then I
Yep.
want you to go into like what are the 5? And then I want you to kind of start with the internal ones
Okay.
first.
Yeah. So these are 5 qualities that I've seen in healthy leaders. I will not say they are all encompassing or the end all be all. So you don't have to come at me and be like, what about this one? What about that? There's a lot of things that healthy leaders embody. But I just noticed that there's a kind of a different level of impact and influence that healthy leaders have when they are embodying and growing in these 5 qualities. So there are 2 that I've identified that are internal, like from within, and then 3 that are external. So they show up where other people can see them, very naturally. So you want me to start with the 2 internal?
Yeah. I want you to start with the 2 internal because I think those are the ones that, because they're internal and you're going to talk about them, I think
Yeah.
those are the ones that people can really think about and think about how they can make changes. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about the 2 internal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's important to start with the internal because who you are internally is going to show up externally. There's no way to avoid that. I also want to start with the internal because I think these are 2 that are the easiest to ignore. As leaders, we are constantly, day in and day out, confronted with the urgent, and the internal is the important. So oftentimes the internal important qualities don't get addressed until there's a crisis, until there is like, I'm about to lose my job, I'm about to lose my marriage, I'm about to like burn out, I want to sell everything and move to another country. Like, a lot of times the internal stuff is not paid attention to until there's like this crisis. And so part of my work in urgency is helping leaders to pay attention and do that work internally first and ongoing so that there is a kind of a natural response externally. So the first internal quality that I actually think is the most important for any leader, anywhere, anytime, is self-aware. That a healthy leader is self-aware. It's the number one quality in both life and leadership. A mentor said to me a long time ago, April, I think a leader needs to be the most self-aware person in the room. And I was like, ew, that feels really, what? What if there's a bunch of leaders in the room? And she's like, you just need to be the most self-aware person in the room, because what you don't know about yourself and others will hurt you and them. So be someone who is constantly knowing themselves. And one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is that transformation begins with self-awareness, but self-awareness creates the illusion of transformation. So for example, you know me quite well. I am not the most patient person in the world. I am like, I want everything now and yesterday and immediately and on time. And like, I'm a pretty go-getter. So patience is not my virtue. Just because I know that to be true about myself, that I'm not patient, doesn't automatically make me patient. In fact, if I know that about myself, but I'm not doing the work to become more patient, that just makes me a jerk, right? Because I just then go, I'm just not patient. That's just who I am. Instead of going, oh, what am I doing? How am I training myself to become more patient? So that I'm the kind of person that doesn't snap at my kids or, lose it on a stranger in the grocery line or whatever, flip somebody off on the highway. How do I become somebody who is more patient? So one question, I hope y'all are taking some notes because we're going real fast on this stuff. And I'm going to give you one question for each one of these 5 qualities. And I would encourage y'all to write this stuff down. So the question that I would ask to become more self-aware is to ask someone else, what is your experience of me? How do you experience me? What am I like? And I would suggest asking a number of people because you'll get a variety of responses. So self-aware is number 1. The second quality internally, I would say, is emotional intelligence. Research actually shows that your emotional intelligence is the number 1 indicator of your success. Number 1, more than degrees, certifications, position, who you know, the number 1 indicator of your holistic success is your EQ. Why? Because your emotions are the primary activator of your behavior. So what it is that you are feeling is activating and causing you to behave in ways that, again, are either harming you or hurting you. And what is really good news to me about EQ, excuse me, is that it's entirely within your capacity to increase and grow. Your IQ is pretty fixed, but your EQ is something that you have the ability to develop and to grow. So the question that I would ask here to become more emotionally aware is, what emotion gets me into the most trouble with myself or with others? What emotion will get you into trouble? So for me, it's anger. I am like the Incredible Hulk. I can go from 0 to 60 in like no time. So again, just knowing that about myself just kind of makes me an asshole if I don't do something differently about it. But managing my emotions, becoming more emotionally intelligent, means that I take that emotion of anger and I use it and transform it for the betterment of my life and my leadership. So those are the first 2. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think it's so helpful. And I was writing on those questions too, because I'm like, these are going to be good questions to ask. And I was thinking about what my answers are, and I think it's so helpful. I think what's also helpful, I think, for everybody in this room is to remind themselves that, like you said, this is something that's like an ongoing improvement.
Yep.
And you and I were talking about that. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's a practice. And I think that is
it's a practice and it's a lifelong journey, right? Like if you've got potential that you are meant to complete within your whole lifetime, which means that there is an ever increasing way for you to develop that and grow into that. So yeah, being on autopilot, going into like a coma, being unawake in your own life is really a problem. And the way for you to avoid that is to continue to do the work.
Awesome. So on that note of continuing to do the work, let's continue on those next 3. So let's talk about the external qualities of leadership.
3. One of the things, again, I say all the time, that has been one of the game changers for me is that when you expand your internal capacity, you naturally get different external results. And going back to my Popeye story at the beginning, I was very focused in my early years of leadership on the external. Like if I can just become more skilled or trained or educated or certified in these external things, then I'll be good. But the truth is that because of the self-awareness and the EQ part, when you expand internally, you naturally, there's like a waterfall effect. There's a domino effect, and you are better. You get better externally. So I think we've kind of gotten that backwards, at least in American leadership, is that we focus way more on the external. So even though there's three here, I would say those first two of self-awareness and EQ are of most importance. So to be more specific then about these external qualities in healthy leadership, the first thing I would say is active listener. We've got two ears and one mouth for a reason. I think leaders are kind of known to be like the talkers. We got things to say. We got ways to tell people what to do, and plans and goals, and to communicate, and vision to cast, and policies to hold to, and all of those things. But I really believe that leadership begins with listening. And I think that when we can hear others over being heard, that it actually creates more effective leadership. And we've already talked that leadership is, wherever you set your feet, at home or at work. And one of the sharpest leadership developers in my life is my daughter, Addisay. She's 15 years old. And one of the things that she says to me more often than I care to admit is, "Mom, put your phone down." Like she's telling me things, and I'm like, and I'm like doing work, and I'm around, and I'm multitasking. And she's like, "Mom, listen to me, put your phone down." And it's just like this regular reminder of I need to listen, not just with my and my head nods, but with my eyes and with my reflections back. So the question that I would say to sharpen your active listening is to ask, did I hear you say ... That's active listening, is to reflect back to the other person. What is it that you actually heard them say? And that's just really like undervalued in a lot of leadership spaces, because folks just are not feeling heard in the workspace. And when they do, there all kinds of things are benefited from. So active listening. Second external quality, I would say, is collaborative. We have this stupid saying in our family too, that teamwork makes the dream work. And again, I have 3 teenagers now, so my 3 teenagers like eye roll it. But I've been saying it since they were little, and they really do believe it. And like, I just really deeply believe, like, we belong together, we belong to one another, that we is greater than me, all of those things. And in leadership, like, you can go so much further with a team when you work together towards a shared project and goal. Like, that's actually what a team is working towards that. Harvard Business Review did a study, and one of the things that they found about collaborative leaders is that the most productive and innovative teams were led by people who were both task-oriented and relationship-oriented. And what's more is that those leaders actually changed their styles and switched it up in whatever project that they were working on. So collaborative leaders know that they can't be nearly as effective or productive or successful unless they are with other people doing their work. So the question that I would ask around this collaborative quality is, what is my best contribution to this team or this project? What's my best contribution? Because if I can contribute my best, then other people can contribute their best. And I'm not having to do your work and your work and your work. I'm doing my best contribution. And when everybody does that, like, really beautiful things happen, right? So active listener, collaborative. And then the last external quality I would say is action oriented. So leaders have a bias towards action. They are not the ones who are sitting back on the sidelines, waiting for all of the stars to align, waiting for all of the problems to be just solved naturally, waiting for all of the ducks to be lined up. Leaders have a bias towards action, but those actions are really anchored in mission, in goals, and in the priorities that the organization has. So I just think, like, leaders need to be willing to jump and do the work before everything is perfectly figured out. Like, there's just a measure of like risk taking, and we'll figure it out as we go type of mentality. So the question that I would have to sharpen this, if this feels like a quality that you can step up a little bit, is, what action am I avoiding? Because I think for all of us, we may have a bias towards action. Like I know that I need to go and do something, but there's oftentimes something that we're just like, well, I don't quite have enough information yet, or I don't have the right person quite that, and we can rationalize all sorts of things and create excuses. So is there something that you are avoiding that you need to take action in? And that's a way for you to increase that.
I love that. And I think one of the questions that people are asking are, at least I did, I am constantly is, am I a good leader? Am I doing it right? Am I
Yeah.
self-aware? Am I,
Yeah.
do I have good active listening skills? So on that note, I took your assessment, um, and I want everybody to know, and we're not going to stay on it too long, but I want everybody to
Yeah.
know that there is this self-evaluation assessment, and maybe you could talk a little bit about it like really quickly because I have
Yeah. Yep.
two more questions for you, April.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think we're going to drop it in the chat, and the name of it is called From Overwhelmed to Empowered. It's 20 questions. It's really quick. It's free, but it'll give you a really good overview as to how you are doing holistically in your life and in your leadership. And a bunch of you have already taken it. It gives you immediate results and a way for you to book a clarity call with me if you want to talk through like what could be some next steps there. And then if you've already taken it and you're like, hey, that felt like a teaser and I want to do a deeper dive, we actually have created a 120 question proprietary wholeness assessment. It is very robust. It is like scientifically validated. It's a legit deal. And this 120 question assessment does a much deeper dive into what your holistic leadership actually looks like. So it's physical, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual, and renewal. It gives you all six and specific ways for you to increase what your holistic leadership can look like for that kind of sustainable success. So I'd love for y'all to take it.
I had fun taking it, and you and I asked you about like how can I make this better, and you're like, there's always room for improvement, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's really fun. Have fun with that assessment. I think it's going to be really great. And if you
Wait,
want,
can I say one more thing?
yeah.
So the first quality I said was self-awareness, right?
Mhm.
So if y'all are listening to this and you haven't taken it, that assessment helps to bring some self-awareness, right? So that's a very quick, specific action step and way for you to actually make progress and do something from this time that we have together.
So on the note of making progress, I
Yeah.
love that. And I would love to give everybody here. These are, our audience are typically HR professionals. Some of them are insurance
Mm-hmm.
brokers. They're all in this like
Mm-hmm.
area of leadership and leading others and helping others. So what
Mm-hmm.
specific strategies can they implement to develop these qualities, these five qualities that you talked about
Mm-hmm.
in themselves
Mm-hmm.
and be able to develop them and foster them within their own
Mm-hmm.
organization. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a whole bunch of them that are just a part of my work, but I would boil it back into what we've already talked about. So answer those five questions within each external or internal and external quality, and choose one specific thing that you want to do in the next 24 hours. Because a lot of times we get on these kinds of calls, and we're like, great idea, great idea, great idea. And then we do absolutely nothing with it. And so it's just actually been a waste of our time. And my work as a coach is to drive towards new actions because new actions create new conversations. So maybe just answer one of those five questions that feels like, oh, that's got some like possibility for me to do something. And then create a tangible, specific action step that is aligned with that question. So if it was in the self-awareness, it's ask three people or one person in the next 24 hours, what is your experience of me? And when you do that, then you can kind of create a little bit more momentum towards actually increasing all of those qualities. But instead of doing all the things or, copy some sort of generalized thing, what is one thing that you need to do. And so do that one thing in the next 24 hours. So write it down, tell somebody, maybe drop it in the chat before we go, just as a little bit of accountability. You can drop it in the chat and we can see it. One thing you're going to do with what it is that you've heard.
I love that. And I think I do encourage everybody to drop it in the chat if you want to be brave. And I know for me, I love the idea of like what emotion gets me into trouble with
Mm-hmm.
myself and with others. And I'm really working on that because I had an experience yesterday with trying to make everybody happy in the family, and it ended up with like nobody happy in the family.
Nobody happy.
And I was reminded that, like, I think that, but I wonder what that emotion is around that. So I'm going to be
Hmm.
asking myself that. Happy to hear what you all think. And again, if you're brave enough to share that in the chat, what question are you going to be asking yourself um,
Good.
this over the next day or two? Like, why not start
Yeah.
today?
Yep.
Jumping on in. So I appreciate you being brave and sharing those with all of us here today. Okay, April, we only have like 3 minutes left. I know
Okay.
I knew we were going to go so fast, and this is going to be so fun. Um, for the leaders here that might be struggling with burnout themselves, like I just came back from the conference
Hmm.
board from California
Hmm.
HR, CAHR conference, and my body decided I was burnt out, and I'm struggling. But for those here on this call, I know a lot of them are
Hmm.
struggling. So,
Hmm.
for those that are struggling with burnout, which of these five qualities should they focus on developing first to restore their own well-being? And I'm not asking
Yeah.
selfishly, I really am asking for everybody.
Yeah, I would say it's the self-awareness one, because it begins and ends there. It really does. And what you don't know about yourself is going to hurt you and hurt others. So if you are like on that burnout pathway, pull back and ask, what's going on? Like, what is causing this? Where am I struggling? What are the factors? What are the causations? What could I do maybe a little bit differently? And when you increase your self-awareness in that way, then you can actually do something about it. But so many times we just kind of keep going down the path and we're just doing the thing and we don't make any course corrections. And then we find ourselves actually in a really bad place when we could have made a 1 degree trajectory shift in a short period of time. So start with self-awareness and get really curious about what's going on inside of you, so that you can make just even a simple shift.
I love that. So we are like right on time, but
Yeah.
because this has been so insightful, I want to give y'all a chance to ask April any questions. So there's a chat feature down at the bottom. Go ahead and drop in the chat if you have any questions that you want to ask April. We'll give it like a minute or two, and if not, we'll wrap it up. For those of you that want to stay and ask questions and kind of go a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit more personal, now is your chance. Anyone have any
Bring it
questions?
on, y'all.
I
I'm
know
here for
April's the best.
it.
All right, give it another sec. I always feel like people are getting all right. So we are going, April, this has been amazing, and I'm so grateful for you to share your expertise with us today. And I'm so grateful to have had the privilege to do this work on leadership and team building with my team this past week with you. And that was really,
Yeah,
really special opportunity.
fun.
So, thank you so much for everybody. If you do have questions, you can email us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Wellness Exchange. If you want to reach out to us directly, you can. The information is going to be here. For more information about Ezer Co, which is April's amazing company, or Goomi Group Wellness offerings, you can visit us at our respective websites, which we will put into the chat. And thank you again for your participation. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you. We'll give it a minute for the websites. All
Are we
right.
still recording?
Mm-hmm.
Can I answer a question that came in the chat?
Yes.
Okay. I just pulled it up because I was like, wait, there's a notification that I just saw. Okay, so here's the question, and it's a really good one. What mindset shifts do you have to learn to proceed with uncertainty? It's such a great question. I was actually leading my mastermind group this morning, and that question came up. I think a lot of leaders have a ton of uncertainty right now. And when we are experiencing uncertainty, our natural human response is to shut down, to pull back, to protect, to conserve, to just really like batten the ratchets, right? Like you just circle, huddle up, and you kind of get paralyzed. That is our natural human response. That is the exact opposite thing that you need to do, especially as a leader. So the best way to respond to uncertainty is to have committed action. Take committed action. So that's the bias towards action, even again, right? And that external quality. And I would say, even the higher the degree of uncertainty, the more you need to commit to doing something. Now, it doesn't have to be huge things. You don't have to like throw your whole life away. You don't have to make massive changes, but you have to do something that is going to move you forward and do something that you know that you can do. Even if it's like drink your water, go for a walk, phone a friend, do your meditation practice, doing something like move forward on that project that you had a lot of passion around, and even though you don't know how it's going to turn out now. I just think like when you experience uncertainty, instead of doing what your natural human response is, you need to do the opposite and move forward with committed action. So it's not really a mindset. It's more of just like actually doing something.
That is great advice. And I'm going to take that whole thing and we're going to snip it out and send it out to everybody because I feel like every single person that I've had a conversation with in the
Yep.
last 2 weeks while I
Yep.
was traveling and at the conferences, they were experiencing uncertainty. Everybody,
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
experiencing it. So I love that. On that note, thank y'all so, so very much. Have a great rest of your day and we'll see you soon. Bye.